Dan Tomko. I'm the sergeant for the City of Phoenix Police Department's Defensive Tactics program right now at the Academy. I've been on for 18 years. I've been through a slew of positions, mostly enforcement before coming down to the Academy, where I am now.
All right, great. Tell me, what did you think coming in to this ISR Matrix school?
So I hadn't been in a ton of training positions before I got to my spot at the Academy. So when I came in, the obvious glaring thing was that a lot of the kids aren't holding on to the information. So we would teach a slew of things, and the retention would be very low. So immediately it was like, what I consider a good leader is someone who always looks for opportunities for growth. And so I said, well, how do we fix it? What do we got to start doing? So we started signing up for different training programs. We had heard that the PJJ program out here had had a huge effect. And so I started reaching out. You guys offered a demo. And so we obviously came to that, and we liked what we saw because of the simplicity of what ISR or PJJ was teaching. And it was kind of basic common sense, right? If I give you 200 things to remember, call it 200 words to memorize, and I need you to repeat them back to me, you're going to grasp 9, maybe. Mark, you might grasp 3, 4, right? I'm going to grasp like 2 or 3, right? And so the common student, how many are they going to grasp? So when we talked to Lewis, and he was like, hey, it's 9 principal foundational things. Mind blown, right? So from 200 things, it's just 9. Like, students can grab 9, especially if I have 3 or 4 months. And so just the idea alone drew us back to the full 40-week program, because I'm looking for something that has a bigger effect on the students who will later become officers out on the street. I need them to grasp more than what they were grasping, because I need to send out a more solid product out into the street. And that's where my mindset was coming to this class.
So tell me, what did you see instead? Now that we're the last day, the end of it, what have you seen instead? So
we had higher functioning guys here. I think everyone's pretty much DT instructors, or at least in that kind of game, and because they're interested. But what I'm noticing is even in the first day, when he threw out all the base of the conceptual, 9 pieces, it was very easy for us to grasp. Well, if I can do that with good dudes in one day, the chance of that being grasped and conceptualized by a bunch of students in 3-4 months at the Academy, to me, that's a huge change. That's a big difference. I can have my instructors teach this, and I think the ability to hold on to it and actually apply it in a useful way, which we've all run Redman drills, basically defensive tactics drills where they have to go live, and seeing a low product, I think common sense would say that the product would have to increase if they conceptualize the 9 pieces and put them to practical use. I think that would be huge. That would be a huge change for us at the Academy.
Where would you like to see this go?
With cities, sometimes the struggle is how to push it out and get it to be accepted as a citywide standard. I think we were talking earlier, and you guys have the largest city that's been able to put it on a wide scale like you've been able to do. And so for Phoenix, I would like it to go state. And the reason is, I think if it was state and mandated, one, you and I show up to the same thing on a border, even though I don't know if Mesa has a lot of borders with Phoenix. Let's call it Tempe, right? So I show up on a scene at 48th Street and baseline call it, right? Tempe's needing help, I'm needing help, we're fighting with a guy right there. Our tactics are the same? That's huge. I would prefer that over each city having an individualized program where I don't speak the same language as you when I show up on a scene with you from a different agency. So I would like to see something statewide. I would like that statewide thing to be something simple like what ISR PJJ provides, and so that everyone has more reps in the same direction, and everyone is able to communicate when you show up to arrest somebody. So city would be great. Like, I'd love to see it go citywide for Phoenix. But long term, bigger term, if it went statewide, it'd be easier for all of the individual agencies to be on board, because then you wouldn't have to do piece by piece by piece. It would be, boom, statewide, everyone's doing it. This is what it is. Every academy has to train it. And so when everyone coming from the academy, at least to start with, comes out on the street, everyone has the same language. Everyone has the same understanding, the same training.
Yeah, and we may not share a border, but like with the riots not too long ago, you had several agencies
Inside
together.
Phoenix.
It'd be nice if we were same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Thank you.
That's
Appreciate
it.
it.
Cool.
My name is Dan Rogers. I'm an officer with the Phoenix Police Department. I currently work on the tactical training detail, which is works with both recruits at our academy and in service.
Okay. Tell me, what did you expect coming into this, the ISR Matrix school?
So we kind of we had seen a little preview from Lewis. As a group, we came down to kind of see what else is out there to help us with our DT program. So we kind of had an idea coming into it, but what we were looking forward to is a more streamlined approach to teaching DT when you don't have a lot of time with maybe the individual officer on the street or the recruit within the academy.
Okay. What did you see now that we're at the last day? What have you seen instead? Maybe some preconceived stuff as opposed to now you've been there.
So we didn't know, like, what we had seen prior was maybe some of like stuff that we're teaching. Didn't know how all of that was going to fit in with what we currently do. Been really impressed with how streamlined it actually is. It's just repeating similar concepts over and over and over again, and how easily they can branch out to maybe other aspects of what you're encountering. But you're just coming back to the same principles of this is what the core 3 things that we need to know and how to get it done.
And where would you like to see this go?
I'd like this to be it would be really helpful for it to be like the standard in Arizona, at least. I think it would allow the untrained maybe recruit or the officer who doesn't train currently on the street simplify difficult situations so they understand where they're going. People who already train a lot, whether it doesn't matter what their chosen skill set is, they're going to pick this up real fast. Like there's not going to be any issues because they already train. It's for the officers maybe who don't train as much or they don't feel like they have time. It also simplify a lot of the staffing issues that we have currently on the street with a more streamlined approach. Similar concepts that are being hit over and over and over again will help just the general population of officers and recruits who maybe haven't had any previous training in other skill sets.
Right on. Thank you. You're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
Yeah.
Some agencies reach out for Jiu-Jitsu as the answer. And our previous program was heavy Jiu-Jitsu influence, and we've found some weaknesses with going just Jiu-Jitsu for police officers. With your training and now doing this week with ISR Matrix, can you explain to me a little bit of how ISR Matrix kind of bridges the gap between Jiu-Jitsu and what officers need for apprehension on the street? The answer.
Yeah, so with jiu-jitsu, especially sports jiu-jitsu, what the goal is there is to have somebody on their back, right? Pin them on their back, and then you either go for some kind of submission move, whether it's a joint lock or it's a choke, right? So obviously in law enforcement, whenever we're handcuffing people, we handcuff people to the rear. So we put someone on their back. That kind of defeats the purpose because now they can't put their hands to the rear, or at the very least we can't get to their hands, right? The other thing is that we have to be at a pretty high level of force to justify breaking somebody's arm, or nowadays especially like putting somebody unconscious. So it kind of defeats, it kind of goes against that as well. So with the PJJ program, especially the way you guys are doing it, to me it's almost more like not necessarily jiu-jitsu, but grappling. And the reason why is because you guys are bringing like the underhook and pikes, you guys are bringing leg rides, you guys are bringing staples, all that stuff that comes from wrestling into the fold, right? And in wrestling, it's the opposite, right? Like It's about controlling people on the ground, pinning people on the ground, right? Manipulating people, moving them the way you want to move. Whereas jiu-jitsu is more like I'm moving myself around to get you to move to me. But if someone doesn't do that, then you're going to have to start moving them, right? So it brings a lot more than just jiu-jitsu. It brings all kind of the grappling together in order to really control somebody, put them on their stomach, keep them there, right? And then start working the arms towards the back. Whereas like in jiu-jitsu, like I said, my goal is to keep you on your back, right? Or to get to your back, right? And find some kind of chokehold, or keep you on your back and find some kind of joint lock, right? So with the PJJ, it's the opposite. It's like you're controlling somebody and you're using it as a team sport as well, right? So you have your partners and now you can work your partners, whereas jiu-jitsu is a single man sport, right? You're using your partners now, and now you're working that whole entire problem with a group of 2 or 3. So that's really the one big thing I saw between jiu-jitsu and what you guys are working here.
Well, I'm a police officer here in Arizona. I've been a police officer for 17 years, and I'm part of our defensive tactics program at our agency.
Okay. Do you have a history with martial arts, some type of combative, other than police academy, stuff like that?
Very limited outside of police academy or police training. I have trained a little bit on some gyms outside, kickboxing, and very limited like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff, but very, very limited.
Okay, great. Tell me, what were your expectations coming into this week?
So just learning more tactics, more control tactics, and team tactics. And then we did come out to one of the earlier like introductions, and then just seeing what the program was going to introduce and kind of teach. I thought it would be a great addition to our program.
Okay. So now you've had the week, ISR Matrix, you've had the week.
Yes.
What did you find now? What did you see instead of whatever your preconceived coming in was?
So I liked that the program overall seemed very easy to kind of pick up the tactics, easy to learn. You can get into the exercises and just do the drills, and then you quickly like pick up on what's effective, and it's simple, right? The other thing that I found beneficial was I think we can teach this to the rest of the department, and I think we can get some buy-in because it's effective.
Okay, great. So that being said, where do you see this going with your agency, ISR Matrix? Where do you see it going? Where would you like to see it go?
So I think it's going to build some confidence just across the department. As far as control, closing the distance when you have to go hands-on with the subject you're going to arrest. I think it'll improve our confidence with that. And then not only that, just maintaining control, gaining control, and then if they have a counter or they attack us, having an answer that they can feel confident will work and be effective. So
I'm sorry, what did you say? What department you were with?
I'm with Scottsdale Police.
Scottsdale Police Department. Are they looking to improve their defensive tactics, or are you just trying to find some training and get some exposure?
So it is both. For me, it's both. But as an agency, we're always looking to improve. I'm not exactly sure how we learned about the PJJ program here with you guys, but it was something that our training lieutenant was very excited for us to learn about. And after seeing it on that first day where we came in kind of as an intro, he was very excited to get a few of us in here to get the training.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
So it's going to be an addition to our current program.
All right.
My name's Rich King. I'm an emergency physician. I am a sworn reserve police officer. I've been attached to a SWAT team for about a decade as the SWAT physician. I was introduced to ISR about a year ago and was very taken by how quickly the proficiency was attained with ISR when compared to any other skill set that I've been introduced through, both in the medical field and with law enforcement. And as a physician, that caused me to say to myself, well, why? Why is this system so capable of creating proficiency as quickly as it does? And it became very evident that the system is a unique blend of biomechanics and teaching strategies that have been merged together to achieve these goals very quickly. And as a physician, I spent my entire life trying to make lives better. And as a SWAT physician, officer wellness is very important to me. And this has become a little bit of a passion project to bring this education to officers, because I really do think it's going to reduce injury and promote wellness. Well, as I said, I've been practicing ISR for about a year now. And so I felt like I probably have developed the fundamental core elements of what ISR is, the basic 9 moves. What I think I expected was that we would go over those basics to create a foundation, and I was very much looking forward to see how we can spiral up and create a more broader application from that core, which is exactly what we got. It was amazing to see how we can utilize that core system that is so attainable so quickly, but then how broadly it can be applied and how it can be used as in an adaptable way for the chaos that reality brings.
Okay. And I wanted to ask you, how did you get introduced to ISR Matrix?
So I said I did Taekwondo as a youngster and through most of my young life. Very recently, within the last couple of years, I did start practicing Jiu-jitsu, and my Jiu-jitsu coach was exposed to ISR and some of the other applications of ISR, the counter-assault tactics. And we started practicing some of the core fundamental ISR techniques and the system there through that entry point.
Okay. So now that we're at the end of this week, you've seen the program as Lewis sort of catered it to law enforcement's needs, are apprehension based, not necessarily combatives based, but it's apprehension based. Mm-hmm. Did you see a difference in what you were exposed to a year ago to this week, where he was showing the apprehension side of it?
Yes and no. And what I mean by that is, I'll say no, it wasn't different in that everything is based off of the core principles. I will say yes in that it gave breadth to it, and it was fun and enlightening to see how we can take that core and apply it to different ways. You know, the first way that I was exposed to ISR was applying it to women's counter-assault. But the same core principles, we're seeing it being adapted to law enforcement and apprehension. And so, but those core principles are always there. And I think that's the beauty of this system, is the adaptability.
Great. Where do you see this program going?
I think my hope is that the beauty of this system, the applicability, the reliability, the repeatability, and the achievability of proficiency will be recognized broadly. I think what's missing in our society, and what I mean by that is the law enforcement environment is all over the board with how we're applying our apprehension techniques. I think more than ever, law enforcement is under the magnifying glass, and I think in protecting our officers with a safe and effective means of apprehension, we will be able to provide better law enforcement and keep the law enforcement officers and the public safer. And I think that's what's necessary, both for the wellness of law enforcement as a profession and for the citizens as well. I think if we can achieve that, then the trust that has probably been lost over the recent years can be regained.
Well, my background's in Muay Thai kickboxing. My name's Adam Gillespie. I'm 53 years old. Been in the martial arts game for 25 years now, probably longer. My coaches are out of Sid Yat Tong, which is a camp out of Bangkok, Thailand. That's where I got my start. Ended up doing MMA and teaching in Arizona, and that's when I got hired at the lab, and that's what got me into mixed martial arts.
So obviously, Mesa ISR Matrix is we are as one right now.
Yes.
Explain to me what we had before.
What we had before was a baseline jiu-jitsu program, which is very good. But it's for the people who are into jiu-jitsu, have time to train jiu-jitsu, and it doesn't apply to police work. And ISR Matrix is specifically designed for police work. It's drillable, it's practical, it's easy to learn, and it makes sense.
So it kind of goes into my next question was what changed when ISR Matrix came to Mesa? You already started to get into it.
Yeah. Probably just, it's not jiu-jitsu, that's the label, but it is a system designed for law enforcement, apprehension and control based, to control people, get them under control so we can put them in handcuffs without injuries to officers and suspects.
Okay. Where do you see this going?
Global. We're going to start in Arizona. Hopefully it spreads across the United States. I don't foresee it failing. I just don't. I think it's going to be as important, like an invention for law enforcement. But the crazy thing to me is that it's been around for 30 years and it hasn't reached out. It hasn't been discovered yet. And I think we're on the brink of that.
Ground floor?
Ground floor, baby.
So let me ask you, with your history, we had a BJJ guy in here
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
We asked him, people say, well, cops need to learn jiu-jitsu, they need to learn MMA, learn how to box, learn Muay Thai.
Sure.
So they want to learn combative arts.
Yes.
So what we asked him was, obviously you can't do MMA on every bad guy you come across.
Correct.
So how does ISR Matrix bridge that gap between people say you need to learn to be this combative fighter, but now you have to be a cop and you have to be apprehension based?
You don't have to be a fighter to be a cop. You do have to have a skill set, and ISR gives officers that skill set, especially in team tactics. You learn the individual skills, but it applies to group tactics. And that's what Lewis was just saying next door when we were training. It's like, hey, jiu-jitsu is a team sport. That's what it was designed for, and that's what we're going for. So he's taking the ideologies of jiu-jitsu and applying it, making it law enforcement specific, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I've been working as an officer for coming up on 20 years. I've been working out here at the academy for a little over 4 years now. I help out with the defensive tactics training, driving training, firearms, a lot of scenario-based training. So do all kinds of stuff to try to help recruits learn how to be cops.
All right. And other than police academy, defensive tactics, do you have any outside martial arts experience, combatives training?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Just sports in high school, but no like official training in any art.
Okay. So you've been here for almost 20 years, you said. Throughout your time, defensive tactics, our Mesa defensive tactics training program, you've seen some changes and things like that. So prior to ISR Matrix, thinking back on your career, how has, or can you describe the program we've had before? How was our defensive tactics program?
To say the least, it was lacking. So we go through the academy. It was very similar when I started teaching out here, how it was when I went through the academy. Very just uniform, like, hey, we're going to strike a bag. We're going to do these different techniques, like from a curriculum. And then from there, that was all we got. There was no more training past that, at least from the department. Like if you wanted to do anything more, you'd have to go look for it for yourself. But even the program itself, when I started teaching out here, I mean, there's value in some of it, but there was, I think it was lacking like a application in a lot of things. Punch the suspect if they assault you. Figure out how to take them to the ground. Here's a couple techniques that may or may not work, and depending on your size, it's probably not going to work. Here's some tools on your belt to go to. It's just like it was like a square, just stay in this box. This is what we have, and it's kind of plain.
Okay, so fast forward to ISR Matrix comes to Mesa. What has changed?
So right before ISR, we kind of went with another similar like Jiu-jitsu program, a police Jiu-jitsu program, and I saw a lot of value in that program being. It gave us a job to do, but that program was very technical. It was really cool to see, but it had so much techniques and it is so technical that I think it was way too difficult to try to push out to the department with people that don't like train regularly. There's almost no way they're going to retain all these different techniques that we learned. So I saw the value that we needed something similar. The ISR is so nice because it's so simple. You can teach in very little time some concepts that get people working, and I teach the academy level. So the academy level, just seeing how fast we can get recruits to get through the ABCs, the basics, and understanding just what's important to move around on the body, how to move it, and it's so basic that they can get a lot of reps and get really good at it instead of having so many techniques that, when we were teaching the other system, we had so many techniques, I would see the recruits failing because they couldn't think of the next technique that they were supposed to go to, and they would overload and freeze and then just revert to scrambling whatever they did before. So the ISR program is seeing them transition between just a few techniques back and forth and solving a lot of the problems that we put them in. It's just really cool to see how fast and how quick they could advance with this and really do much better than they were doing before, not getting stuck as often with like getting in a position where they didn't know what to do. It was, hey, here's a couple techniques. That's not working, go to the next one, and they're sorting out the problems really fast.
Okay. Tell me, where do you see this program going?
Well, I'm hoping that it takes off. I know we're pushing a lot of recruits. Like right now, we're pushing so many recruits out, and we have so many people retiring that eventually everything they're learning in the academy is just going to start flowing into what is on the street. But our recent in-service training, where we're introducing a lot of in-service guys to it, seeing the reluctancy to be part of it because of our history of other stuff that they didn't really have a good time with. They got a really bad flavor in their mouth about it. Having them come in and do it, and then just getting the feedback saying, hey, well, this actually made sense. This is pretty good stuff. I can see it. What I'd love to see is this just becoming the standard, because I think it's, I've never seen recruits leave from the academy and be so wanting more. Our prior defensive tactics program, we gave them what we got, they left, and there wasn't really that desire for them to, hey, I need to train more of what we got. It was just, now go on and learn some other stuff in your field training. When they're leaving now, they're asking us, hey, how can I continue? What things are out there for me to continue this training and continue developing my skill? So I really hope that floods throughout like the department, and I really hope the state, because I think we do work with other agencies occasionally, and we're all on the same page. Things would go so smooth. I think it'd be really a good thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So I'm currently in the process of rewriting our whole control tactics program, and I'm pushing to bring in the stuff we did this week, specifically everything we did here that Mesa PD is doing and PJJ in general, into my agency. And that being our core base of our program. Everything from how you're running things here with the cadets from DTS PT and introducing it early without skill sets, and then introducing it with a skill set, and just all the tactics in general for base.
So you said you've seen some things you haven't seen before. What was your expectation coming in to this week?
So expectation was to see the changes in the program now that it's being at Lewis's new position here, and seeing how integrating what he had with the law enforcement agency as being a part of it, not just training it from the outside. What was implemented and the buy-in from the instructors that are already here and already part of the cadre, because they're on the street doing things every day. I'm with the feds, so if I get one use force counter a year, that's a lot. Usually it's 0 for most of our people, because we're going out with everything's with like 15 people. So it's not really like one random contact. So with like a PD getting everyday contacts and use of force, submission to see I want to know what your take was on it and where it went with that input.
Okay. And you may have already answered this, but just want to ask you, what have you seen now that you've done this week? You're at the end. Expectations coming in with your prior history. What did you see of this week?
So the biggest thing for me was the safe position on the ground, instead of going from arm wrap and sprawling, and the team tactic stuff even on the ground, and just the overall control of everything was very simple, and no matter what the size difference was, and just the communication was very simple and clean, and it's everything about it. It's simple, and how no matter what position you're in or technique, whether it's gun, knife, on the ground, standing, those 9 techniques come into play over and over again. And to works as autonomous. It's super, just do it.
All right. Thank you.
My name is Brandon Hamilton. I'm a Mesa police officer. I've been here for 11 years, spent just shy of 9 years at patrol, 2 years at the range, and I've been here with the advanced training unit for about 3 months.
Okay, great. And can you tell us if you have any history in a type of martial arts, combatives, other than police stuff, outside training? What's your history?
Prior to being a police officer, I did about 2 years of Muay Thai kickboxing. Then I started my career, so I stopped doing that because it was pretty brutal. And then 4 years ago, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-jitsu.
Okay, great. So talking about Mesa specific, the combatives or defensive tactics program we had prior, not immediately prior, but just our history since you've been here. What you went through and learned in the academy, what you've learned throughout your career, and now we have ISR Matrix in. What did we have before? Like, how would you describe that?
Very rudimentary, basic, like having some sort of background, fundamental understanding of fighting. I knew it was what we had for at least AZ Post. It was not enough for us as cops, for effecting arrest and being able to safely put people into custody. It wasn't enough.
Okay. So now ISR Matrix comes into Mesa. What has changed?
Everything. Everything's changed. Now we have a comprehensive system that is simple, repeatable, and can be trained to the masses so everyone gets a baseline understanding of what is expected, what pieces of our suspect's body needs to be attached to, and how we deal with them, especially as a team.
Okay, great. So where do you see this going? Where do you see ISR Matrix and Mesa and PJJ? Where do you see it going?
With how much invested we have into it, the people that we have here in this unit and that are supporting the unit, I see this not going away anytime soon, and I just see it getting bigger, going to other agencies through the state, and this being the standard.
My name is Jamie Gissel. I've been with the Mesa Police Department for almost 20 years now. Spent most of my time on the SWAT team, and now I've come out to training the last year and a half.
Okay. And a little bit of history on what's your martial arts combatives history other than like police academy, like outside?
I grew up wrestled since started wrestling when I was 8 years old, all the way through high school, and then coached wrestling for a little bit after high school.
Okay. So 20 years of law enforcement with the same agency. So you've seen our defensive tactics program. I'll use the word evolve, but it's changed a little bit here and there. So throughout your career, what was our defensive tactics program before ISR Matrix came in?
When I was in the academy, it was teaching how to punch and kick, and that was about it. A lot of hardcore, just getting in there, beating each other up, and that was it. So being away from the training division and being on the SWAT team, we didn't do a whole lot of defensive tactics because we had our own set of skill set that we did for that. But when I came over to training, we started getting into the police jiu-jitsu type stuff, which was heavily jiu-jitsu based. And coming from a wrestling background, I understood it, but I also felt like it was a little much for apprehension for law enforcement. And so I was able to use some of the wrestling skills better throughout my career than necessarily jiu-jitsu. But I also still didn't feel, as I went through these different courses, that jiu-jitsu was the best solution for the entire department. Because one, it was really hard to train a lot, and in order to get good at it, it takes a lot of time to train, a lot of years of experience, which there's lots of officers that are willing to put in that effort, but the majority of the department isn't. So trying to find a system where the entire department can grasp onto, and so the people that don't train that often can have some sort of skill set to fall back on, was lacking. And so it was hard for me to see that the jiu-jitsu based program working for the entire department.
Okay. So fast forward to several months ago, ISR Matrix comes in. What's changed?
The simplicity of the tactics has changed. We've seen officers who'd never trained before grasp onto it because it is so simple. It's 9 basic concepts, and once they understand those 9 basic concepts and rep those over and over again, now they have a basic skill set that they can fall back on. And even the people that have jiu-jitsu skills or wrestling skills or Muay Thai skills or whatever type of system they work, they can jump in with those officers that don't have that skill set and be successful. And I've also seen that the ISR Matrix is apprehension based more than a sport. It is directly designed for law enforcement to be able to deal with combative subjects and compliant subjects and get them controlled and detained in a safe way that's safe for both the officer and for the suspect and the community in general. And another interesting thing that I've seen is, as we've started to roll this out for the whole department, is almost a culture shift where officers that were afraid to come in and do the police jiu-jitsu and get beat up over and over again are now understanding with these same 9 basic principles, they can come in and train and work at their own pace, still develop that skill set, but then train at their own pace so they're not getting hurt or getting less officers injured in training. And it's making people want to train more, and it's almost changing the culture within our department of wanting to train, want to get better, and we're seeing it over and over again as it's being applied case after case through Axon. We're seeing videos of it working over and over and over again. Whereas before we would have just jumped on somebody and used every bit of force we could have, or every bit of force necessary to take them into custody.
Okay. So where do you see this program going?
I see this program continuing to evolve within our department. Hopefully, as we've branched out and started talking to other agencies, making it the way we do things in Arizona and hopefully nationwide, because it is so simple, and officers within other agencies, if they know those basic 9 concepts, they can bring, if they show up to a call with a neighboring agency, they can jump in and know where to fall in line and how to apprehend the suspect together instead of everybody pushing and pulling and doing different things. And I see it continuing to grow and change the culture, not only within Mesa, but nationwide as we continue to grow this type of apprehension system.
My name is Marco Angulo. I work for the Mesa Police Department and the training department, helping out with both academy and proficiency. I have been in law enforcement for over 12 years. My background is more on corrections, on the corrections side of law enforcement. I was part of the special operations team for the company that I work for that cover the entire nation. That's pretty much it.
How long have you been with Mesa?
I've been with Mesa for almost 3 years now.
3 years. Okay. And can you tell us your outside martial arts history, combatives history? What training have you had?
I started with Muay Thai, kickboxing, and then transitioned over to the Brazilian Jiu-jitsu side. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-jitsu for over 16 years. I'm a second-degree black belt in that martial art.
Okay. So 3 years with Mesa and with prior law enforcement. So before ISR Matrix came in, can you kind of explain what the defensive tactics program or training was before ISR Matrix came in?
Well, when I first started in law enforcement, it was basically a couple of control holds and OCCS. And after that, it was whether you were a tough guy or you weren't, whether you could be a fighter or you weren't. And it was just that separation all the way through.
Okay. So now ISR Matrix comes in. What has changed?
I have had other systems that I work with and that I taught before. And they were all good systems. They all have their qualities and they're viable, they work, but they require a lot of training. So it takes a long time for those systems to actually get traction in any department and in any place that you go and teach them. ISR Matrix comes in and simplifies everything. It goes down to just a few techniques that are easy to teach, they're easy to follow, they're easy to remember, and they're interconnected. So every time that something fails, you just circle back around to the place that you were before, and then you continue. So that has made a huge change for not only me as an instructor, but the people that we teach as well.
Okay. And where do you see this going? Where do you see ISR Matrix going?
Well, hopefully it continues. It has the backing of the department here in Mesa. So we're trying to share it, and there's other agencies that want to know more about our system because we have it with the recruits in the academy, and they come in from other agencies. Once they go back to their agency, they're sharing what they know or what they've been taught here in the academy. And then their supervisors are like, well, can you show us more of this ISR system that you guys have been working with? So hopefully it continues to grow throughout the state and hopefully the nation.
Okay, so you said you've been doing jiu-jitsu 16 years,
Yeah.
right? So when people are thinking about defensive tactics for cops, they talk about MMA, boxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and things like that. Taking your Brazilian jiu-jitsu training and ISR, can you tell me how ISR Matrix kind of bridges the gap between what jiu-jitsu can do for like law enforcement and what ISR can do as far as apprehension?
Jiu-jitsu is the art of controlling a non-compliant person in the most efficient way. ISR has copied that philosophy into apprehension. We are not in the business, or nobody wants to be in the business of creating officers that are MMA fighters. We have the public that we have to answer to. There's litigation that you can't be in trouble for depending on the techniques that you use. So ISR Matrix basically takes all that extra stuff that you shouldn't be using from both boxing and jiu-jitsu and MMA altogether, and just directs it into apprehension. It's laser focused into apprehension, and it's taken all the extra stuff out of the equation. That's why in my opinion, it's the best system that I've come across in my career, because it's so laser focused and it's so easy to remember that everything else can be taught, but it takes a long time. And anyone that has been involved in martial arts can tell you it takes at least 2 years to be proficient at something, or at least be decent at it. ISR Matrix can give you the tools that you need to be proficient, and depending on how much you train it, I think you can do it within a month.
Yeah, I'm Kyle Thomas. I'm the advanced training sergeant out here at Mesa PD, and I've been a cop for 18 years. I've been on SWAT for 15 years, and then I came out here about a little over a year ago.
18 years with PD, with Mesa. So you've seen the defensive tactics program for those 18 years. What's changed, what hasn't changed, what's gotten better, what hasn't. Up until ISR Matrix came in, what was, in your own words, like what was the defensive tactics programs before?
So I have a lot of blunt force trauma to the brain, but from what I can remember, it consisted a lot of siloed training where you're teaching individual skill sets like punching, using weapon retention stuff, using striking with batons. It's very informal, very limited, and essentially they teach you a skill set, have you train it several reps, and then you had to kind of put it together yourself. They didn't teach you transitions. They didn't teach you how it flowed from one technique to the next. And then since coming to ISR, a lot of those techniques are trained into the system. So it's part of the drills. You work through transitions. Something doesn't work, you go back to those fundamental skill sets and you work straight into the next thing. So that's been the big difference from what we used to teach compared to now. Yeah, so the big change is it's easier to learn. It's more uniform. It's easier to understand. It's easier to process in the heat of the moment. You have several options instead of 1,000 or creating your own. So that's been it's a simple platform to use.
Okay. And where do you see this program going?
The goal is that we increase it throughout Mesa PD, then we increase it throughout the state of Arizona, and I could foresee it going across the nation and then potentially globally if it picks up steam. I think we're in a sweet time right now with politics, and we're post-George Floyd era, use of force, and I think the question mark is how do we do this job, do it well, while still keeping officers safe. And I think we present a lot of good opportunities and a lot of solutions to the problems that we're facing. The public expects more of us, and I think we have good answers and good solutions to their expectations.
So let me ask you one follow-up. The supervisor for the training unit, you see and you hear what's being discussed about use of force now, how it's changed, if it's changed, as to what was being said before, officer injuries, suspect injuries, things like that. Can you kind of briefly just what's changed since ISR Matrix came in?
Yeah, so initially when we integrated our police jiu-jitsu program several years ago, we had a significant reduction in injuries to officers, significant reduction to injuries in suspects, and it was good. Since rolling out ISR techniques in our Mesa Police Jiu-Jitsu program, kind of version 2.0, we've seen even greater reduction in officer injuries. I don't know if a serious reduction in suspect injuries, but there has been a minor reduction. And the cool part is we've seen better applications of the force rather than greater numbers. So officers are using the right level of force more frequently than using too much force or transitioning between different levels of force that they shouldn't be at before they use the correct level, if that makes sense.
All right. 4.
So the program built by AZ Post or whatever was designed around you have 40, like a minimum of 45 hours that you had to teach at an academy level. So it was very focused around striking, around going to weapons, or dealing with a compliant person. There wasn't a whole lot to handle that middle ground, which is the hardest, where you're dealing with an individual that's resistive, but not at the point where it's combative, where you can strike them. So it was weak in that regards because it takes a lot of time to learn to grapple, wrestle with an individual, and because they lack time, they focus more on strikes and weapons.
Okay. So now we fast forward to several months ago, ISR Matrix comes to Mesa. What's changed?
So as far as with Lewis's system, can I back up a little before that? So talking about, we kind of years ago started going to doing Gracie Grapple, I think it was originally, then Gracie Combatives and stuff, which I really liked. I liked their instruction and everything, but it was very technical. It was, for someone that's not a grappler, it was very hard to, if you don't train that stuff, put those pieces together, even if you know, all right, yeah, I was taught this technique in class, but how do I apply that in the scheme of like going at life speed, and what do I do now? So I found that very difficult, even though I went through their school for it and stuff. And then probably about 3-4 years ago now, we got Code 4 Concepts in here, and I think that was a step in the right direction. It kind of started adding like, all right, well, how do you apply some of this wrestling, grappling type stuff to this resistive individual? Still, for me, again, not having a background in this stuff, it was helpful, but it was still very complicated for me, trying to figure out a lot of the stuff we did. So fast forward to the ISR, it was simplified big time, at least for someone like me without the grappling experience. Having 9 basic techniques and whittling it down to, all right, you got some inner steps, or intercepts, you got some stabilizers, and you got a couple things to resolve it. It really simplified the process and was a lot easier to learn. So it made the grappling, wrestling, going hands-on control of an individual, it make sense to someone like me. And the nice thing about it then is it can branch from there. Lewis has shown some other stuff to us as far as you can turn it into combatives from there, still using those basic 9 steps or whatever, 9 techniques that we're dealing with, but you can go so much further with it. But it's still built off of those simple fundamentals. So that's what I liked about it.
Great. Where do you see this program going?
Yeah, depends on how much overtime they allow us to have. Yeah, I see it with Mesa. I don't think this isn't going to go away. I think as far as in Mesa, I think it'll be part of our system now completely. Going beyond that, I saw, especially at this school, a lot of interest from other agencies, Phoenix and stuff, just talking to guys that I've been on different committees with over there that have been looking for something like this. They're like, yeah, to them, it seems like they're very interested in this, and the other agencies that I talked to over there, very interested. So I could see this getting worked into, the ultimate goal of hopefully something along this lines, becoming like the standard for policing in Arizona for the defensive tactics type program.
My name is Michael Cyan. I'm a retired military officer and special agent. I spent 30 years with the Department of Defense. First 8 years was with the Army, and then I did 23 years with the Air Force as both an enlisted active duty agent and then a civilian agent.
How long have you been with ISR?
I've been with ISR for about 17 years. On top of that, I've been in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the last 20, but we focus mainly with ISR and defensive tactics.
Okay, 17 years, a long time. Can you tell us, in your opinion, what has changed with ISR over the years?
When I was first introduced to ISR, I was with the anti-terrorism specialty team out of San Antonio, Texas. I was the operations officer for that team, and we were looking for something to connect all of the different combative courses that we would go to train our agents, because our agents would go to high threat areas to do very specific, unique missions in counterintelligence and counterterrorism. And when we first got introduced to it, it was a great way to connect combatives, but we could go non-combative right away. But it stuck to the 3 intercepts, 3 stabilizers, 3 resolutions. And there was still a bit of an aggressiveness with it because we were with the military. We would still put people on the ground pretty hard. We would control them a little rougher, but basically based on our environments. And what I've seen over the years of watching ISR change and being involved with it is, and I like it this way, is that it has changed with societal perception of what acceptability is for use of force, even though it keeps the officer safe and it always keeps us in control. Even on the military side, it keeps us in kit, in country, front towards enemy safe. It is more friendly to the camera, because even when we were deployed, there were either body cams or surveillance video or PA with us. And now on the civilian side, there's everybody with a camera, and it's always up. I've seen it stay as controlled and as effective as it's always been, but it's more camera friendly and more societally acceptable, if that makes sense. Sure. I've also seen, and I liked this too, coming back and taking a look at it, that we have more intermediate steps. When I first started with ISR, arm drag to helmet was it. There was no intermediate ability to brace. We would just touch somebody and they'll go combative right away. And now we have the ability to to make contact with somebody, talk to them, and then if I have to go underhook pike or I have to go helmet, if I have to get more aggressive, because the helmet is a more aggressive movement, I can do that, but I don't have to. It just keeps you, if I'm making contact with you, it keeps you calm. It allows me as the officer or the agent or the operator in the field to stay calm, and it gives me a chance to think for a second instead of just making contact, controlling right away and putting you on the ground. I have that brief fraction of a second that I can process all of the information around me, which we all need over time.
A little about yourself.
Well, I like long walks on the beach. My name is Scott Santos. I'm originally from Arkansas, started in ISR in 2012. I'm looking for a better DT course for my department. I was introduced to ISR back in 2005 with the DVDs. I took them with me on my deployment, watched them repeatedly, started training this stuff with my guys, and once I was able to actually take an ISR course, we were hooked. The department loved it. We were able to implement it. Done 16 years in law enforcement, 10 years as the assistant team leader on the SWAT team, and 4 years as the task force officer with the U.S. Marshals Violent Fugitive Task Force. Currently, I have a master's degree in clinical counseling, and I'm using that in threat management to do behavioral threat assessments on any type of threats coming into clients that I serve.
Okay, a lot of experience there. Can you tell me what has changed with ISR?
A couple of things have changed. The techniques seem to have been simplified. One of the things with ISR originally was the techniques were simple anyway. It wasn't a whole catalog of techniques, but they went really deep. You can mix and match. And that was where the Matrix came from, right? It wasn't just a lot of techniques. It was a handful of simple techniques that you could interchange as you needed. The thing that's changed, I think, is something that I think in law enforcement, military world, we've been waiting for because we had to take the techniques back to our department and sell those. And we were the people on the inside trying to change the administration. Now I think with Lou's experience with working on the inside, he's seen the struggle that we've had. And he's actually made those changes himself to the curriculum and simplified it, but not haphazardly, with the support of medical advice, with the support of homicide detective that's done a thesis on police use of force. So I think the changes are the simplicity, which has always been the main draw for ISR, and it's just become more simple yet more robust, if that's a possibility.